things don't always end up being the way you want them to be, and this is a prime example. So, as you all know who follow this series, this front end was wrapped up, or so I thought it was. Now, obviously I knew that these shocks were too long. They were fully compressed, so I got shorter shocks. But I don't know, you might not have been able to tell by the video, but they were a little, slanted. Like they were probably at like a 15-degree angle. Like they weren't straight up and down, which didn't really matter. Like I could have gotten away with it, but when I went to put the new shocks on, I figured, I would do that real quick. This wasn't meant to turn into a full video, but I went to put the new shocks on and they didn't fit in between the I'm not even sure what you call them, the tabs, the shock tabs. I know there's like a proper name for them, but I don't have the energy to look it up right now and interrupt what I'm doing. So but yeah, the tabs that I welded on, the triangular tabs that the shocks bolt into on the bottom, were too close together. And because they were a little bit off to the side and they weren't, straight down below the bolt on the top, I decided that I would just knock off or cut off the one on the outside and then just leave the inside one where it was at, and then just move the outside one to be the inside one. If that makes any kind of sense, you'll see. But yeah, it actually worked out to be perfectly straight by doing it that way. And I'm kind of really glad that I did this for a couple reasons. Well, it had to be done either way. So I couldn't have really gotten away with just leaving it the way it was, because it wasn't right. And B, they weren't straight. And C, they were too close together. So the other shock that, like if I wanted to put any other shocks on here, they wouldn't have fit. And D, the most important reason, is because when I took the outside tab off, it didn't take much effort to knock it off. And that kind of concerned me a little bit, because though these were on here pretty strong and they would have worked out, like it would have been fine, I want this to be extremely sturdy. Like I want everything that I weld on this car to be ridiculous, because it's a big heavy car and a lot weighs on this front end. The engine's not in it yet, and the engine's going to add another 800 pounds to the front end, so it damn well better be strong. Everything up here needs to be solid as a rock, and being able to break that tab off fairly easy kind of concerned me. And I realized it was because I forgot to weld on the inside of the tab. I only did the outsides. So I took the opportunity while the outside ones were off to weld the inside, and so that both sides of the tab were on, which it made a world of difference, because I don't show that process, but in between me putting the new shocks back on, or the new shocks on for the first time, I tried to clamp. I put the clamp on them and clamped them together, and I just wanted to see how strong they were and see if it would break off. I wanted to kind of test my welds, and I couldn't get them to budge. I mean, they're solid as a rock, so I would never be able to knock them off the way I was able to, this time. So I feel a whole lot better about the whole situation. At first, I was kind of bummed that I even had to do it at all, because I figured it was all said and done and it was painted, and I was like, all right, I'm good. But better safe than sorry. And I just, not having it right, not having them straight bothered me really bad. But like, it was one of those situations where if I could have gotten away with it, I probably would have let it be. But shocks didn't fit, so I was forced to do this, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, I mean, I started off by, I saved these tabs. I could have ordered new ones, but these ones were perfectly fine. They just had welds on them, and they were just tacked in. I mean, I didn't burn them in, like, as I said, they weren't burnt on both sides. So it was fairly easy to grind the weld off, and I did, I do grind the other side so that I can weld on both sides this time. And the bar is already prepped. But yeah, it made a huge difference, and it's just what needed to be done. And I have my kind of half-assed workbench out here. It's not a workbench at all, but I will say that I'm pretty excited to get this car done in a way where I can drive it and pull it in and out, because I can't stand not being able to use my stuff. Like, I can't get to anything in the garage. This car's really taking up a lot of space, and though I can still walk around it and everything, everything still feels kind of crammed. I can't use a machine, and nor do I want to. I don't want to build anything out of wood, because I just don't want the dust. I try to keep the dust down, because I have to keep cleaning everything. But it is what it is. I mean, this project, as you guys know, is very important to me, and building a hot rod has always been a dream to me, and it's ridiculous that I waited 34 years. I'm 35 now, and I started this a year ago, and it's ridiculous that it's taken me this long in my life to do it. Now, that's not to say, I've had awesome cars. I've had other hot rods, not this old, but I've had some beautiful cars in my life. I've always been into cars, and I had some awesome trucks. I had some cool lowriders, but I never built one from the ground up like this. They were already built. I might have threw some wheels on them or stereo systems and tinted the windows or got them painted. I even painted one of them myself before, and the whole 9 yards, but did little bits of body work here and there. But I've never, I've souped up a few engines and thrown some, different intakes on some engines and exhaust systems, but I've never welded, and I've never built a car from, the ground up, like never welded a floor in or anything like that. Like, I've never fully made a car custom to the point where I'm actually setting where the seat brackets are going to be. And I have thrown different seats in cars that didn't belong in the car that I put them in, but I just bolted them to the floor that was already there. In this case, I'm building my own floor. I mean, it's a dream come true, and I'm enjoying every second of it. I'm going to be really sad when it's over, but I feel like this will never really be over. Like, I feel like even when I get the car to where I want it to be, it'll still, like, always need something. Like I don't think a vehicle's ever done, especially when it's like this. Like, if you buy a car off a lot and you just drive it to get to work and back, in the grocery store and to the gas station, like, that car might be done because you don't want to mess with it, and it's there, or has a warranty. But with a car like this, like, I really don't think that it's ever done. Like, there's always going to be something you can do to it to make it cooler or more, or faster, or, better in some way. So I'll probably always be messing with it. Now, these tabs are obviously, they're from Speedway Motors. The straight axle is from Speedway Motors, and it's probably, I'm really impressed with the kit. I don't know how to compare it to any other kit because I've never done this before. I've never even seen, as I've said in past videos, I've never seen a straight axle in real life. I've never seen a gasser in real life. I'm just building this off of like pictures that I've seen of similar cars, Plymouths and Chryslers, that are similar, that I can find images on Google. I've never seen a real gasser in real life. Like if I go to a car show in my town, there's a pretty good, car scene in my area, but there's no gassers. I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm outside of Pittsburgh. If you go into Pittsburgh, there's like all kinds. There's even like a lowrider scene in Pittsburgh. There's some cool stuff going on. But like where I'm at, there's a lot of hot rods, and there's a little bit of everything. You got your Honda kids, you got all that stuff. And there's like a truck scene. There's a lot of the diesel boys out there, but there's not a lot of people that are into hot rods like this, like like gassers, or like custom hot rods. Like people usually, they're really old folks that have original cars, or there's no one my age that's really into this. And if there are, I don't know them, or I haven't met them yet, so I don't really have a whole lot of advice, and going off of pictures is kind of rough sometimes, because you can't get certain angles in the picture. You might see one picture of something, and you want to see the rest of the build, and you can't. But luckily this straight axle was pretty self-explanatory for someone who's never seen one before, or has never seen a gasser. It really wasn't too bad. It was really intimidating at first. I almost I mentioned this in a previous video, but like I almost was gonna pay like $2,500, or like I was actually gonna give away my 91 Chevy Silverado to get someone to install this, because like I didn't know how else. I was gonna pay somebody. Like I didn't want to do it. I was intimidated by it. It's a very important piece of the build, and it's got to be safe, and it's got to be straight, and it's got to be symmetrical, and it's got to be perfect, or else like a million things can go wrong. And also, I didn't realize that my steering box was going to line up the way it did, and like it was going to actually work with this build. I thought I was going to have to get a Vegas steering box and all this craziness, but it all worked out, and I'm just very thankful that it did. And I'm very glad that I didn't, wuss out and just like not try it. Had I not just gotten in there and did it, I would have never known. I would have ended up paying someone a ton of money for a project that took me 2 days, to do, and it was really easy. Now, that being said, I'm obviously fixing a mistake I made, but it was fairly easy, but you could go about it so many different ways. It depends on what car you're putting it in. Like, this is a universal kit, so if this was on a different car, the steering would be completely different. You might not be able to use the box. Like, I just got really lucky with that part. And there, depending on your frame, you could mount the shocks differently. You might be limited to what you can do or where you can do it, but this just worked out the way it did, and it just happened to not be that bad. I mean, all I'm doing right now is just grinding down an area to weld. weld the new tabs to. Now, as you can see, like I left the original tabs alone and I'm just flipping the old ones to the other side, and that's all I had to do. And I mean, they're perfectly straight. It almost looks like I planned it to be that way, but clearly this is living proof that I didn't. This is completely accidental, but it just ended up working out, thankfully. And these shocks that I bought, I mean, they're really not. They're really not like I should have got shorter ones. They're not the right ones either, but there's about 2 inches of shock. Whatchamacallit, like there's 2 inches of room for them to compress, which this front end is so stiff that I don't even think I've stood on top of it with 3 of my buddies standing on there to kind of replicate the weight of an engine. I mean, we had about 700 pounds or 600 pounds on this, and it doesn't move. Like, this is gonna be it's gonna feel like I'm on like a wagon with wooden wheels, when I drive this thing. It's gonna be very stiff in the front, but that's the whole point. I want it to be. This isn't a luxury vehicle, or else I would buy another Cadillac. This is it's supposed to be. I want to know when I'm driving it that I'm driving a car that's 80 years old. So it's going to be very stiff, and I don't think that the 2-inch of shock is going to be compressed. If it does go down an inch, then that means I still have an inch, which is fine, as long as there's a little something there. But I could always get a shorter set of shocks for $60 to $80, and it's not going to kill me. But these ones end up working out. They're going to work out just fine, I think. But as you know, this is a learning process through and through. Every day I learn something new on this car, so I'll find out if they don't work, or it is what it is. I'll be going back and fixing more mistakes, I'm sure, on this. And I need to run new brake lines, as I said in the last video. And another thing I didn't mention is I need a bead roller. I need to borrow a bead roller either off my buddy, or I'm going to buy one, because as much as I want to burn that floor in, it's like ready to roll, but I need to bead roll the sheet metal, or else it's going to rattle all over the place, and it's just not going to be as strong at all. And I really want this to be done right. And if I don't bead roll it and I burn this floor into this car, everybody that's watching is going to kill me anyway. They're going to be like, man, why wouldn't you bead roll it? I know that I have to. I know it's the right thing to do. I wish I could get away with not doing it, but it's got to be done, I think. I mean, right? Like, it just adds so much structural integrity to the car. And I think, if not for anything else, like I said, the sound, like the vibration with that big motor in here, it's gonna be so, it's just gonna vibrate, and it's gonna drive me nuts. Even if I use Dynamat and carpeting, which I plan on doing, I think it still needs bead rolled. But trust me, I would love, like, if it didn't need bead rolled, I would have burned it in already. Like, well, not actually, because I need to run the brake lines, but I would plan to do that. That would just be like, that'd be my next thing to do. But knowing that I need to bead roll it, it's kind of holding me off from doing it, because I need to get a hold of one first, and I really don't want to drop $300 on a bead roller just to use one time. So I have a buddy who has one, and I'm gonna try to get a hold of it this week, and then I'm gonna go from there. But yeah, it's definitely burning 10 times better now. and I'm a whole lot happier with the situation. I think another thing as well that I didn't do the last time is I didn't turn the welder up as hot as I did here. I turned it up like basically the whole way because this is really thick. So when I did the perches I did, but I don't think I did with the tabs because I was nervous. I don't know why I thought I would burn through them. There's no way I would, but I really burnt these things in. And like I said earlier, I didn't record the process, but I use that clamp, and I clamp these without the shock being in there. I clamped these together to see if I could get them to bend or get them to, and I mean they didn't budge. Like they started to bend, and then I stopped because but it was really hard to make them bend. Like they're burnt in there so good, and it just really confirms that I'm really trusting my welds a lot more. Like I feel more confident with them because not ever welding before, like you can weld things up and they might stick together, but you don't know how strong they are until they're actually put to the test. And I never really put any of these welds to the test. Like you can wiggle them around and they're not moving and they're strong, but you don't really know what's going to happen when you drive down the road. So, and I still don't, to be fair, but the more I do this and the more I get confident with it, because I like actually try to break things as I go. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but I'll try to like I tried to break these tabs off after I welded them down just to see if they would crack or break, and I could not get them to. So it makes me feel a whole lot better about it. And I know how well I burnt everything else on this straight axle, so I really hope that it's the same scenario throughout. And with the floor, with the frame, I put some beefy welds in them, and all the body mounts and everything. With the floor, it's going to be tricky. Not tricky, but the metal's like only, it's like 20 gauge, metal, so it's not, I have to really keep it down and not burn through it, but I still want it to be strong enough to, burn into the steel, like into the square tubing, which it'll be fine. I've been doing a lot. I did the rockers, so, and that was really thin metal. I mean, it was like rotting, so if I was able to do that without burning through, I think I'll be fine. But I just have to keep remembering to, take into consideration that I keep going from thicker metal to thinner metal, and getting used to not going overboard. But who am I kidding? I go overboard with everything. That's just the way I am. It's ridiculous. I have to literally try to talk myself out of things. But when it comes to a car, I think it's a good thing, to go overboard, because then you don't regret not doing it later on. So see, they're basically perfectly straight. I mean, they might be at a very, very slight angle, but not enough to where it's going to compromise anything. And I'm really, really stoked that I took the time, and it was an hour out of my day, to fix these, and they're in there right, and I have the new shocks in, and that's that. So see, there's only about 2 inches there of room to go down, but like I said, it doesn't go down. We stood on it. There's no room for I think it'll be fine. But stay tuned for the next one, and thanks for watching.